Now, the federal government says it will probe and prosecute those behind the mismanagement of funds meant for the development of the Niger Delta region. The Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Abubakar Malami, said this while receiving the report of the forensic audit of the Niger Delta Development Commission on behalf of President Muhammadu Buhari. Mr. Malami said the huge gap between invested resources without commensurate infrastructural development called for the forensic audit of the NDDC. Joining me in the studio is strategy consultant Dikbo Oyewole. Good morning.
Good morning.
And via Zoom is Special Assistant on Youth Affairs to the sole administrator NDDC, Udengs Eradiro, for the mix-up of your name. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, good morning, viewers.
Now, let me begin with you, Mr. Eradiro. When you look at what the forensic report came up with, talking about the fact that in 10 years, 90.9 billion can't be accounted for, and this was meant for 176 projects. This is shows government's effort at trying to, revitalize and bring development to that region, yet in 10 years, this huge amount can't be accounted for. Talk to us about this. Help us better understand this development.
Well, first of all, I want to use this opportunity to commend Mr. President for standing true to his word when he said he was going to investigate the activities of the NDDC over the years in order to unravel the reason why the NDDC itself have not been able to deliver to the people of the Niger Delta. And it is on that note that we are all now talking about the reports and then the revolutions that have just come out. So a special thanks to the minister, in spite of all the tantrums that were thrown.
All right. We seem to have some technical challenges there. We'll definitely come back to you. Okay.
I'm not going to leave up. Hello?
Yes. All right. Go ahead.
Hello?
Go ahead. Do thanks. We can hear
Hello?
you.
Yeah, truly, the NDDC had issues, and that was the reason.
We'll definitely come back to Udengs Eradiro for more there. But let's come to the studio now, Dikbo. When you look at this amount, 90.9 billion in 10 years for development in the region, within the spate of 10 years, I mean, what comes to mind? What impression does this give you? I mean, year in, year out, government come out, and they tried, to put in, just have some development in that region, and yet we are not seeing something commensurate. And this, the report is exposing to us. What does it say?
Well, it says that there's been a lot of mismanagement, obviously, but the question you asked Udengs is where did the money go to? I'll cast your mind back to 2008. When Sam Edem was the MD of NDDC, and it was alleged that he gave ₦1 billion to do juju, so he could obtain government contracts, and even his herbalist said that he burnt 270 million in cash at a cemetery while he was naked as part of the ritual. So you're asking where the money went. You're looking for 100 billion now. I just told you where $1 billion went to. Last year, when COVID hit Nigeria end of February, by the month of May 2020, the NDDC had spent 1.5 billion naira on COVID relief for their own staff only. Mind you, at the same time, the federal government hadn't spent half of that amount, either at their level or whatever they were going to be given to the states. Somehow the NDDC, as an agency by itself, had spent 1.5 billion naira. Some folks got 10 million naira, some folks got 5 million naira. They said they spent $500 million naira on buying face masks and sanitizers.
For just staffers?
For just staff. The NDDC over the years is something we have been shouting about, that it is a hotbed for corruption and gross mismanagement. it makes absolutely no sense, the numbers we keep hearing from that place. And so far, what have we seen? Interestingly, when the president called for the audit of their accounts in 2019, some of us were looking to see where this was going to fall out to. And interestingly, we are here today. But the question is, where do we go from here?
Absolutely, we're getting there.
Yes.
We'll get there.
Yes. So we would like to see, one, people return a lot of money, and two, spend a lot of jail time. Because you see, it isn't just enough for people to return money, because for us, that is the primary deterrence that we'd like to look at. They return money and then we tell them to maybe go away or live a quiet life. People need to serve good jail time, because that is the sure deterrent for people to understand that this doesn't work that way.
How is it that people fold their arms and watch persons in 10 years squander monies
100 billion
like
naira
this? Because we have the youth groups, for which Udengs was one of their leader before he was appointed in this position now. And, you know, there's been agitations for all of it. And I'm asking, how is it that they couldn't hold people to account in these 10 years? I'm certain that information went out with regards to monies, you know, that is being disbursed
to them,
to the Niger Delta or to the NDDC, and nobody's asking questions. How are these monies being spent?
So I believe that on some level, I think that's something that Udengs would want to really answer. But I mean, we'll just say that on some level, I believe that it also goes to the culture of not holding people in authority at various levels accountable, not asking questions. Because I believe that year on year, every single time money is dispersed to the NDDC, the folks that are primary stakeholders get to hear of it.
Absolutely.
They get to hear of the amount, they get to hear of who got the money, they get to hear. And I mean, I find it quite ridiculous that in that period of time, they have 14,000 uncompleted and or abandoned projects. How is that even possible? 14,000. So that means that maybe they alleged they were building a hospital, they laid the foundation, maybe put a couple of blocks there, abandoned it. And then you see in the report they spent 2 billion naira. Somebody else is saying that he's building, or they're building a school. They do that, they stop it there, and then some other person comes in and says that, okay, you know what, that is for the other administration, that's for the person that just left now. I'm going to start my own abandoned project. And that is the culture we have seen year on year. So that's why we keep saying that we need to have a strong sense of accountability, either at the level of the citizens and also at the level of government.
I guess Udengs is back. Perhaps you want to react to your statement.
Udengs,
yes. Go ahead.
I fully agree that there's been huge mismanagement in the NDC. But also, it is a persistent call for probe by the people of the Niger Delta that led to the president heeding to the call of the people of the region. So truly, the people have been calling for accountability. But you see the way Nigerian system is like President Muhammadu Buhari to say yes, we have to carry out this investigation according to the demands of the people. And of course, you have seen that the revelations are there on the street. Where do we go from here becomes the issue. How do we ensure that those projects monies that have been taken are returned? But again, since the probe was instituted, you could see that over 100 projects are now ready for completion because most of the contractors, having heard that the president has started the probe, went back to site. If you move around the Niger Delta, 1 naira wasn't given to contractors, but a lot of them went back to complete their projects that they have left site for. Again, the procurement process is another problem, and that's why we talk about the entire organogram of the NDDC to be structured in such a manner that the institution begins to function properly. Some people are talking about the board throwing accusations to the minister that the minister is wanting to reduce power. No. What the minister is saying is that, look, we need to reposition the NDDC so that it begins to function properly like every other board. There is too much waste. If you look at the report that has come out within the structure of the NDDC, for instance, you have now over 19 member board that is also running day-to-day affairs. A board is not meant to run the day-to-day affairs of an organization. There's an executive committee of about 3 appointed directors, and then several other directors that lead directorates that run the day-to-day affairs of the institution.
A recommendation. What the minister is trying to say is to say, look, let us reduce the way the NDDC is run so that we can be able to cut some of the money, that are plunged into recurrent expenditure. And that's where people are throwing tantrums that know he wants to reduce powers. No.
When you say people are throwing tantrums, the question they are asking is that there are 9 states within the region. If you say you want to reduce the number of board members and ensure that they work on a part-time basis, what is the strategy? Which states are we saying, you know what, hold on. What is the plan? You need to make it clear to the people, don't you think?
No, you see, the entire plan is not yet out because when he talked about reducing it, he didn't say that he's going to reduce the executive committee, but the board itself. Because if you look at other institutions, the institutions run with a board that supervises the executive committees. So there are already recommendations that in no distant time will be made available to the public, where you will see that every state is carried along. If you look at the old act, the act talked about production quantum. But is that fair to other states? Because as of today, you have states like Edo State, states like Imo State, that, you know, new discoveries have come in. Some of them have gotten new fields as a result of court cases. So if you look at production quantum, those states have actually come up in production. But if you follow the old act, then you will be restricting it to just 4 states, Bayelsa Delta, Rivers, and Akwa Ibom State. And so that review is also coming to accommodate every other state that is actually producing enough to the NDDC. So people should wait for the president to digest the report, and then when it is made public, we can now begin to pick most of those areas that we think that are not in tandem with the institution.
Let's bring the conversation to the studio and get Dikwa's reaction to this reduction in number, because the question on the lips of some is that, is reducing the number going to bring efficiency to the board? I mean, what do you see? What do you think?
Well, I believe, like you said, the entire framework hasn't been presented yet, but would reducing the number bring a lot more efficiency in terms of cost? I'm not sure, because we also have to understand that it's a balance that they need to strike between proper representation
absolutely
of all the stakeholders in terms of the states that are represented on the commission, that their interests are actually represented, so that there isn't a conversation around, okay, our people aren't there, our representative isn't there, and all of that. So I believe that that is something that we need to find a balance with. At the same time, reducing the board or not, there are strong measures that can be put in place to ensure that leakages don't happen.
Right.
There are strong measures. The question is, all the existing boards that have been there, what have they been doing? Why was it that on their own watch they have 14,000 abandoned projects? What happened? So the question is, either you're reducing the number of the board members, or you're increasing it, or you're maintaining status quo. What is their charter? Do they have a sense of responsibility? Do they understand what their job really is about? So that is the question right now, not about reducing or increasing, because now we're talking about plugging leakages and stopping wastages. Reducing the number of board members, is that where we'll get the biggest return in terms of having to conserve funds and ensure that there isn't huge mismanagement and there isn't leakage or waste. So that is, for me, what they should really be looking at as a priority. Absolutely.
Now, back to you, Mr. Eradiro. Now, the issue you mentioned earlier is, where do we... Eradiri is, where do we go from here? So looking at the thing now, a lot of persons are saying that they are not confident that at the end of the day, saying that this persons will be prosecuted will certainly be. Talk to us, perhaps by, encouraging people and just bringing back the confidence of the people on the NDDC. Where are we going from here? What are your expectations of the president moving forward at this time?
I think that the Niger Delta people should wait and allow the report to be fully exposed to the public. You will see that a thorough job has been done to ensure that one, there's accountability, two, every stakeholder is carried along, and then three, to ensuring that the NDDC live up to its expectation. You see, in the past, like, this is my personal opinion, I just felt that, look, if we have been appointing politicians and they come in there and use that place to service their political interests, then maybe while they are going to be appointing persons, a thorough background check should be done. And then going forward, there should be something like an oath of office to say, look, within this period, I will not be focused on contesting any election or something like that. But I assure that a proper job has been done. And when the entire report report and recommendation is exposed to the public, you will see that truly the interest of the Niger Delta and of course the nation have been put into consideration.
Now, Dikpo, is a prosecution in itself enough? And do you share the same views as he has said?
It isn't enough. I believe a lot of money should be returned to start with, and then prosecution. Because really, I keep saying this, people need to go to jail for this. You need to understand that at 100 billion naira, do you know how many schools you could build? Today we're talking about having issues with the power grid. They could have their own power stations. Do you know how many hospitals you could build? Do you know how many roads you could build? Do you know how much you could make people's lives better with 100 billion naira? Now this 100 billion naira, let's not bother to convert it into any other currency, but 100 billion naira is 100 billion naira.
Absolutely.
People need to go to prison for that. Do you know how many people had died? How many women had died while trying to give birth because certain hospitals were not being constructed, or because they were being constructed and then they were abandoned because somebody chose to steal it, or you chose to go to the cemetery to burn 270 million naira. People need to go to jail. They need to understand that embezzlement, corruption, mismanagement, and waste of funds, they have real life and real-time consequences on the lives of people. It's not just about talking about numbers or the statistics or the data. People have, now you need to understand that in the last 18 years of the report, now 18 years is, for some people, how many years they've gotten to be alive, unfortunately. Now, if you're talking 18 years, you have a child that maybe was 10 years old in 2001. As at that time they were counting the 18 years, the child would be 28. An adult. How are we sure that in that period of time, that particular child was able to get quality education, to become a productive member of society? Can we guarantee that? Can we guarantee that a lot of children within that age group survived up until 28 because they didn't die of a treatable disease because hospitals were not built? I believe when we start to look at things from this perspective,
understanding the impact,
the true impact of these things, then we would understand that there is no other way than to say that after returning money, people need to go to jail. Probably even being tried for attempted murder, if that is even possible under the law, because people would have died because of these funds that they had embezzled, and people did not have access to live better lives or to just live regular lives. Because either way you like it, it is the Commonwealth for all, and especially for the people of that region. But for some reason, some people believe that they have access to it, they have control over it, and then for that reason, they can do whatever they want with it with little impact whatsoever. Now, this is not just a function of having no sense of responsibility, but it is just being selfish and it is just being wicked. So there should be consequences for that, to also send the message to other people in that region and other parts of the country that this is no longer acceptable, and there will be strong consequences for these actions when they're carried out.
Like he has pointed out that this is already sending a strong message to the contractors who abandoned some projects and that they have returned to work. And we are hoping, Mr. Heradiri, that we'll see a lot more contractors return to work, because like my guest in the studio has analyzed the impact this has had on the people. But your final word on this matter moving forward, what perhaps the people should expect at the end of the day in terms of development, because from reports they're saying that the 70% of persons living in Niger Delta are living below the poverty line despite these monies. What improvements should we be looking forward to after we have seen the prosecutions? What are the plans that the NDDC have in place for even the youth? Talk to us.
Well, first of all, I want to say that the sentiments my comrade there shared is the same thing that led to the Niger Delta calling for the probe. And of course, the president have ordered that an investigation be done with a view to bringing all those who have been found culpable to book. Right. So it should be rest assured, and Nigerians should be rest assured that truly the security agencies and investigative organizations will do their job to bring in those who have plundered the resources of the region to book. Going forward, I think that with what the minister have put in place, the NDDC is going to be repositioned for optimum performance to the Niger Delta people. And that's why I'm calling on young people and organizations in the region to be calm and wait till the entire report is out in the public. We are beginning to see youth groups begin to throw tantrums, calling for sack of minister and things like that. I think that the minister should be commended at this point, rather than the same actors who wanted to stop the entire process are now going back to the drawing board to try to derail the direction of the leadership of the country today in terms of the NDDC. I assure you, with what I know, that if the right persons are selected to man the incoming board, I think that there will be a youth from where we are coming from. But you know, in Nigeria, it's not something that you put your finger and begin to cast on stone what you expect at the end of the day. Everything depends on the way the leadership will direct the NDDC going forward. If we get the right people who have the understanding of the NDDC, who know their honors to take the new leadership that is coming, devoid of the political interest that we have seen, we should be rest assured that the NDDC will live up to expectation.
Is it possible to have persons, bringing the conversation to the studio now, to have persons devoid of political interest come on board the NDDC? Do you see that happening? And this matter, talking about the issue of prosecution, is going to test our laws. Are you confident that we'll see the result that we have looking forward to?
Well, we can only hope. We can only hope. We can only hope in terms of prosecution, but in terms of bringing people who don't have any political affiliations or interests, it will be quite difficult. It will be quite difficult. Maybe part of the charter, there should be a caveat that says that maybe up until the time you've been on the board and after, maybe 4 years before you got on the board and 4 years after you left the board, you can't run for political office or you can't be appointed. Maybe if that is something like that is put in place, maybe we'll get the right people in place. Then again, we do know that people like to function with proxies sometimes. So even the people that have political interest or actual political actors in the current climate could have the proxies go in there. But I believe that there are other stringent measures that we can put in place.
Like what?
Well, I'm sure I just mentioned one now.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there are a wide variety of them. But over a period of time, I would expect that the people putting the board together and putting the other measures in place to ensure that there is a mismanagement and to see that the right people are in the right place will be able to sit down and have comprehensive recommendations as to how to go about selecting the people to be on the board, what the requirements should be, what their pedigree should be. Are we looking at them from the private sector only? Are we going to mix them with private sector and public sector? What is going to be the conversation around how many years of experience? Is there going to be an age? What difference? What field should they have come from and all of that? So I believe that those different factors should come into play.
All right, let's come back to Mr. Eradiri. It seems you were reacting to the question I asked my guest in the studio when I asked, is it possible to have persons who have no political affiliation come on board the NDDC? I'd like to get your reaction again, and then let's look at the level of engagement with the youth who you have been talking about, saying that are agitating and calling for the sack of the minister. What is the level of engagement with them?
First of all, I say yes, it's possible to get some individuals, not 100%, just like we have Barrister Effiong-Akwa. Barrister Effiong-Akwa, who is the interim administrator for now, is a man who doesn't have any political affiliation or political ambition, and so for that reason he has been focused on doing his job. That same way, there are a lot of young people who have the capacity to do this job according to the mandate that have been laid out by the people, and of course the leadership of the country. Secondly, the institutions of state must live up to their expectation and their job. The EFCC, the ICPC must ensure that they do their periodic vetting of institutions like the NDDC, so that people will sit up and do what is necessary. Once that fear is there, we will begin to have people focus on the job for which they have been appointed. And I know that with the new organogram that is coming, some of these things have been looked at, and they will all be put in place to ensure there's some form of normalcy in the NDDC. On the issue of the engagement, of course, we are engaging youth organizations. The Ijaw Youth Council is an institution that I was president, and I was very frontal on the issues of development in Niger Delta, including the NDDC. And that engagement is going on to ensure that the people give the government the opportunity to express itself with respect to the NDDC board going forward.
All right, we'll leave the conversation here now. Thank you so much. Special Assistant on Youth Affairs to the Sole Administrator, NDDC, Udengs Eradiri, and Strategy Consultant, Dipo Oyewole. Gentlemen, thank you for your time on the program.
Thank you for having me.
All right.